This is the AI Brief, brought to you by the YPO Technology Network, and I'm Stephen Forté. By the end of today's episode, you will understand how AI capability converts into enterprise deployment, not in theory, but through the specific structures being built right now to make that happen at scale. One story is about who gains control of your AI vendor decisions before you realize they are at stake. The other is the most instructive corporate reinvention of the past 3 years. And the CFO of that company is deploying the same technology he sells inside his own finance function today. Let's go. Here is what the OpenAI and Anthropic private equity joint ventures are not: a vendor evaluation. They are not a procurement decision your CIO runs. What they are is a capital allocation event at the fund level, one that, if your company sits inside a PE portfolio, lands at the board before it ever reaches your inbox. What happened? In March, OpenAI finalized a joint venture with TPG, Advent International, Bain Capital, and Brookfield. The PE firms commit roughly $4 billion in preferred equity, receive board seats, and get early access to OpenAI's enterprise tools, plus forward-deployed engineers embedded inside portfolio companies. Anthropic moved first with a structurally different deal. Blackstone, Permira, and Hellman and Friedman, common equity, no guaranteed return. OpenAI sweetened a 17.5% guaranteed minimum return on the PE capital. Both companies are targeting an IPO this year. I've been sitting with that 17.5% number, and here is where I land. That is not confidence. That is a subsidy. OpenAI is paying PE firms to embed its technology in portfolio companies before the enterprise AI market consolidates. The question worth carrying forward: what happens to your costs when the subsidy ends? To understand why PE is the right distribution target, you need BCG's 10 to 20/70 rule. Only 10% of the value in an AI transformation lies in the algorithm itself. 20% is data and infrastructure, and a full 70% is the process and governance transformation required to make the technology stick. That 70% is exactly what PE operating partners already run. The model is the commodity. The operating change is the product. The question your CFO is going to ask is whether this changes anything if you are not inside a PE portfolio. It does in two ways. First, BCG data shows PE-backed companies that systematically build AI capabilities have nearly twice the return on invested capital of those that do not. When your sponsor commits to a specific platform, vendor selection moves from IT evaluation to board mandate. Second, this accelerates the end of AI experimentation. Portfolio-level selection made once at the fund collapses the multi-pilot era. Companies still running parallel experiments are now being benchmarked against peers who received a top-down mandate and moved. What it looks like in practice: Vista Equity Partners built what it calls the agentic AI factory, a centralized deployment framework across its portfolio of 90-plus enterprise software companies. One AI operating partner, one playbook across 30 companies instead of 30 separate experiments. One company, Gainsight, put autonomous agents on customer renewal management. The renewal cycle went from 7 days to 1. Churn risk dropped by 90%. That is not an IT project. That is a competitive moat built at the fund level. One signal worth naming: Thoma Bravo walked away from the deal. Their argument: every PE firm already accesses OpenAI as an ordinary customer without writing a check. The value, if it exists, is in the supported integration. Forward-deployed engineers building switching costs into your workflows from day one. Platform choice should be durable. Model choice should stay reversible. Now, I want to shift gears completely, because we have been talking about deal structures, about who controls the vendor decision. But none of that matters if the infrastructure does not exist to run AI at enterprise scale. And the company that built that infrastructure faster than anyone, and from a position no one expected, is Dell. This is a different kind of story. This is a case study in corporate reinvention. Dell is not an AI company that also sells computers. That framing gets the causality backwards. Dell is a server manufacturer with decades of enterprise relationships covering nearly all of the Fortune 500. And it converted that installed base advantage into a $25 billion AI infrastructure business in 2 fiscal years. The before picture, September 2022, Dell's stock is at $32 analyst consensus. The company missed every major transition after the PC, cloud, mobile, SaaS. Then the enterprise AI spending cycle ignites, and suddenly the most unfashionable company in technology is exactly what the market needs. Dell was already the world's #1 server manufacturer. The relationships were in place. When demand arrived, Dell was in the room before competitors had written the pitch deck. The stock has since gone up roughly 5x. Let me think through why Dell and not HP, because HP is down over the same period. What Dell had, a clean balance sheet, Michael Dell's willingness to bet on the AI vision before it showed up in revenue, and operational execution that locked in NVIDIA GPU supply during the shortage. In March 2024, Dell launched the Dell AI Factory with NVIDIA, a full-stack platform combining servers, GPUs, networking, professional services, and lifecycle management. Jensen Huang stood alongside Michael Dell and called it, and I am quoting him, the first and the largest generative AI go-to-market in history. That is not Dell's marketing. That is the person who understands AI hardware better than almost anyone alive, endorsing a partner at the highest level. The most recent results tell the rest of the story. AI server revenue grew over 300% year over year in the latest quarter. The backlog is enormous, and Bank of America, after running supply chain checks in Asia, just raised its AI server estimate above Dell's own guidance, suggesting the company's own targets may be conservative. Now, here is where the Dell story shifts from a market story to a management story. And this is the part I want you to sit with. David Kennedy is Dell's CFO. 27 years at the company. Last week, he gave Fortune a first-person account of how he runs his own finance function right now. Agents handling account reconciliations and journal entries, digital twins running in supply chain and services, an internal CRM model that gives the sales force back hours every week. He is building a data science team inside the CFO function, not routing it through central IT. His line on data, you're only as good as the data you have, and then trying to direct the agent in the right format because an agent wants to work 24/7. And then on what he is seeing across the customer base, Kennedy said this, the fear of being left behind is becoming more powerful. That sentence from the CFO of a company that just built a $25 billion AI business is what urgency sounds like when it is no longer hypothetical. He is not afraid. He is watching every customer feel that fear and act on it. So what does this mean for you? Let me bring both stories together with what I think matters most. If you are evaluating AI infrastructure, and at this point you should be, the Dell AI Factory belongs on your shortlist. The economics are real. Significantly lower cost than equivalent cloud deployments, and early adopters are reporting strong returns in year one. For serious AI workloads, on-premise infrastructure is back in the conversation, and Dell is the dominant option. That is a conversation worth having before you sign a cloud contract. But the deeper lesson is the Kennedy model. Here is a 27-year operating executive, not a technologist by title, deploying agents across reconciliations, supply chain, and CRM inside a large enterprise finance function. He is doing it under his own governance framework with his own data science team, while simultaneously scaling a massive growth business. That is not a pilot program, that is a management template. And it replicates on the PE side, whether you sit inside a portfolio or not, the signal is clear. AI vendor selection is moving up the org chart. It is becoming a board-level capital allocation decision, not a technology evaluation. The era of running 5 parallel experiments and letting each team pick their own tool is ending. The companies that will be in the strongest position 12 months from now are the ones that make that consolidation decision deliberately, rather than having it made for them by a sponsor, a competitor, or a vendor's forward-deployed engineer who shows up in your office next month. So today, PE joint ventures that reveal the real economics of enterprise AI conversion, and the 70% rule that explains why the model is the easy part, and Dell's full arc from a $32 stock to a $25 billion AI infrastructure business with a CFO who deploys the same agents his company sells. The question is not whether you will operate inside the architecture they are building. The question is whether you understand your position in it before it is assigned to you. That is the YPO Tech Network AI brief for Thursday, April 2nd. I am Stephen Forté. If this was useful, send it to a fellow member. I will be back Friday with more. Until then, stay sharp.